B1AG, I want the bag. Work my way from a garden to a track. Flip it from a track to a plot full of acres. Do it for the farmers and producers and the makers. What we even here for? Occasionally I ask it. I know it's more than struggling, anticipating the casket. Reap what we sow, trying to fill up my basket. Life's a plantation, I self-law and master. Over the plot I've been granted on this planet. Now it's slanted, cause the chosen been supplanted. But if you overstand it, it was spoken. Fractured, but we ain't broken. Even though some would rather play the role of token, we growing. Black through the essence of a presence. We carry the blood of gods, we carry the mind of peasants. Rich black gardens, future look more like Eden. Multiply seeds like the seed banks in Sweden. Rep my planners on plan according to season. B1 code, switching it up is treason. Black power, family what we eat. Either we get fed or we feed. B1AG.
Copyright disclaimer under Section 107 of the Copyright Act of 1976. Allowance is made for fair use for purposes such as criticism, comment, news reporting, teaching, scholarship, and research. Fair use is a use permitted by copyright statute that may otherwise be infringing. Nonprofit, educational, or personal use tips the balance in favor of fair use. What's going on? What is going on? What is growing on? This is John Henry Harris. We also have Farmer Brown EMC, and this is B1AG. Here at B1AG, we focus on Black agriculture as it pertains to agricultural production, education, marketing, health, food, nutrition, and economics, all for the Black family and the Black community. Now, we're aware of this pandemic that we're in, but there is also an unintended group of people that are being damaged by this pandemic that is exacerbated by the food and supply chain shortages, and that is the school system. And we're not just talking about, the kids that have to stay home or have been forced home, to quarantine, or school districts, closing down. We're talking about the fact that so many of these children that do attend school, they literally depend on these school lunches for their sustenance on a daily basis. For some of these kids, their school lunch is their only guaranteed meals for that day. And that is being hindered and challenged all across the country at this moment. And a lot of major news agencies are not talking about it, but we're here to talk about it today. Schools across the country, they're struggling to feed students. This is very real. And I'm talking about from Chicago to Kansas City, Seattle, all across the country. These school districts are really being taxed and stretched to the limits just trying to feed their students. And we're going to dive deep and dig into this story today. Farmer Brown, they're struggling to feed the kids, bro.
First, I'd just like to say peace to the B1 family. These are serious times, when you hear about, the concept of war, certain unspoken rules of engagement, you leave the elders alone and you leave the kids alone. But we found ourselves under attack, not necessarily from swords or guns or missiles, but hunger. Like I said, whether we want to classify this as a pandemic or plandemic, it is having an indelible effect on not only the broader food supply, but specifically the kids, the seeds. Here at B1AG, we do cover, topics specifically related to agriculture. I know to some it might seem like we're being negative, but really, we're just pointing out what's going on. But more importantly, just talking about some of the solutions. Right now in North America, we have enough issues, but to see what's going on with these schools, both of us just kind of stumbled upon this news. It's not something you see pasted across the mainstream news while we're paying attention to sports starting back and, other logistics regarding school. One of the things we're forgetting about is there's a large amount of students that depend on school food that school provides.
Now, before we jump into it, please like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, and subscribe. Like, share, subscribe. We got to get our people talking. We need to get our people, our family, we need to get everyone talking about this food. This food affects everything. Everything that we do in this society revolves around or passes through food. Food is the foundation of everything we do. If we don't eat, there's nothing else going on, not even living. So let's get this conversation going. Let's get this conversation growing, and let's make it a larger conversation amongst everyone. We need to talk about this food, where our food comes from, what's in our food, and also the fragility of our food system. Our food is under attack, and we'd rather be solution based and have solutions, a way out, trap doors, however you want to call it. We want to have mechanisms in place to make sure that our most vulnerable, which is definitely our children and our elderly, as well as ourselves, are fed. We have a place at the table to eat. So like, share, and subscribe. B1AG Daily Bread Podcast. I'll see YouTube search bar. Like, share, subscribe. Let's make this platform grow. Okay, now back to the subject at hand. Schools across the country are struggling to feed students. Again, this is not being covered by your national media sources. However, local media from these cities are talking about it. And we just like to show you one report from Kansas City that talks about this pretty disturbing trend that we're seeing across school districts across the country.
We're not going to have enough food for kids in school.
It's a shortage that's being felt all over the city.
Another district just had to serve meals yesterday with no milk at all.
North Kansas City and others putting out a plea on Thursday.
We need intervention.
The district says the days of menu selection and choices are gone. So far this school year, they're barely getting enough food to get through the day.
It's corn, it's broccoli, it's hamburgers.
The result, many area districts now having to buy food from wholesalers like Costco and Sam's. They add the USDA has given them more menu flexibility due to the shortage, but that's not getting them any more food.
So they don't have enough warehouse people to pick the food. They don't have enough truckers to deliver the food to us.
North Kansas City has 21,000 students. They serve more than 8,000 breakfasts every morning and more than 14,000 lunches daily. This is just one district nationwide dealing with this huge food shortage.
Well, if you can get 20 cases at Sam's, that seems like a lot, but we need hundreds of cases for just one day.
Some families say they're adding more to the backpack when their kids leave for school. We kind of pack their lunches. And if supplies don't start filling up soon.
We have actually called Pizza Hut.
From 2 days a week last year to now 5 days a week this year.
It is absolutely breaking the budget right now, but the kids have to be fed.
In North Kansas City, Alan Shope, KMBC 9 News.
Enjoy no hidden fees.
This is a real issue, y'all. And just to give you some numbers, because now these numbers were taken from 2017 and 2018. Nearly 22 million low-income children participated in the National School Lunch Program on a typical day during the 2017-2018 school year. 22 million. That's across the country. 22 million children. Nearly 97,000 schools participated in the National School Lunch Program during the 2017-2018 school year. That's a lot of school districts. That's a lot of children that are being affected right now. That are some of the most vulnerable. They're low income. So a lot of times they depend on those free lunches or reduced lunches. Those are a lot of times they're only guaranteed meals for the day.
You had pointed out that's pre-pandemic. And so what do we have going on now? So as of Labor Day, 7.5 million adults, the pandemic relief is going to end. The extended unemployment relief is going to end as of Labor Day, 7.5 million people. And so, you don't have to be a mathematician to realize with this 7.5 million people, I imagine this is the parents, the guardians, in many cases, the grandparents of these 22 million children. And so, and this is during COVID, in the midst of Delta transferring into Mu, so to speak. This is a very serious situation, family. If it was 22 million in 2017, 2018, then I would imagine that's about up to 23, 24 million now. This isn't an issue that, it's as simple as somebody stroking a pen. As the lady had said in the news report, the budget, the USDA said, yeah, y'all can expand what it is you serve to them. But that's not even the issue. The food isn't available. They're having to resort to fast food, Pizza Hut. I remember growing up, Pizza Hut was cool. We had Little Caesars, when we had school pizza. But saying that to say, that's not a healthy meal for, children. But, when you have a shortage on meat, for children that eat meat, when you have a shortage, like she said, on broccoli, certain fruits and vegetables. Once again, where are some of these kids going to get this nutrition from if they're not getting it from school? One of the things that this pandemic has, kind of exposed about North America, there are a lot of well-meaning parents who just don't have the means to provide a full, healthy meal for their children every day. It's not disparaging on them as a person, more so that, okay, we're in a system where, rent for efficiency in places like New York is going to hit you about $1,500, $2,000. Even in Lexington, Kentucky, you are lucky to find something under $900 a month. Not to mention food prices are going up because of all of the other international disruptions within the food supply chain. Last week, we were talking about Cisco. This is one of the largest wholesale food suppliers. They're saying that the demand is way higher than what their capacity is to fill it. And so this is when they're talking to the restaurants, this is their conversation with the grocery stores. And so once again, you have this perfect storm of these calamities hitting. And the worst thing about it is that's affecting children.
This is very, disheartening to an extent. Really, it really is. Again, these words that were spoken by those FDA officials who stepped down, the public will pay a price. The public will pay a price. We're going through a lot of changes right now, family. A lot of changes. And one of the main things that will be affected is the availability, cost, and able to procure food. That's why at B1AG, we advocate that everybody needs to learn how to grow their own food. Grow your own food. This would be the best first line of defense, not only for, health, as far as being healthy, but also just being able to eat. Some people don't think about, their ability to feed themselves or be able to go get something to eat. A lot of people, they've never had that challenge. Oh, they've always been able to just, go to a drive-through or, go to a grocery store. But even simple tasks as that, they are under attack and being challenged as we speak. School districts across the country are having problems finding food for the children. And if it's not, and then it's not just finding food, but finding cafeteria workers, finding truck drivers to deliver the food, finding people that work in the warehouses to pack the food to be delivered.
Look how deep this goes. And so, a lot of time when we hear the word Chicago, because that was actually when we were doing our research, that was the first city that popped up that's having this issue. So nationally, everybody wants to point out how, Chirac, they're just, shooting it up there. But what they're not factoring in is and you don't really have to be a scientist to understand, there's a direct link between gun violence and food insecurity. We came across an article from trace.org. And this is out of St. Louis. The connection between gun violence and food insecurity. An analysis of last year's 271 homicides in St. Louis found that nearly 70% occurred in low-income census tract with no grocery store or supermarket for at least half a mile. 52 killings were concentrated in 8 census tracts with no grocery store for a mile. There's a direct connection. There's a direct connection. Is this saying the brothers is drilling on each other because they don't have a, it's not a store that they can go get food? No, but if day to day, the distance and, statistics knows that the melanated family has to exhaust more gas, more time, more effort to go get healthy food. On top of that, you're going to end up paying more. You're paying more because we get on average paid less. And so you have all of these issues culminating. And then, you have the mainstream that only wants to point out the result of all of these underlying, when we think about these pre-existing conditions. Hunger, food insecurity is a pre-existing condition. And I don't see any contact tracers per se, from a federal level running to mitigate this. It's very frustrating, family. There's some brothers, the urban farmer in St. Louis. There's a lot of brothers and sisters who are addressing this on a local scale. But like you said, there's 97,000 different schools, across the country that are serving free lunch. And so I imagine wherever melanated people are dotted across the diaspora, there's enough people that know how to produce food to really start forming some of these connections. Multiple times on this B1AG podcast, we talk about our goal of reaching 250,000 third through fifth graders. That isn't a vague number. It isn't, just pulling a number out of the sky. The purpose of that is if we know now 22 to 25 million students are low-income students are on free lunch or dependent on schools for their food, then if you look at this chart looking 5 years, 10 years down the road, because like we were talking about with Dr. Boyce, I don't think Moderna, Pfizer, or any of these companies are going to just suddenly turn around and say, hey, we don't need to sell you this gene therapy no more. I mean, it's making a killing. It's making a lot of money. Same way, a lot of teachers right now, when you're talking about the shortage of workers in the cafeterias, the school buses, they're not with it. They're like, hold up, all of these cases are suddenly going up, and now y'all want us to just run back into the classroom. I remember last summer when all of this hit, and then this kind of ties into solution opportunities. When all of this hit, it was the bus drivers. It was some of those teachers, some of the community organizers who came together, and they were working with the bus drivers to distribute the meals to the kids. This is, when everything first started jumping off. But those same bus drivers didn't come back in fall 2021. Here in Lexington, they're talking about, hey, they were getting paid like $18 an hour. They're talking about trying to pay $30 an hour, and it's still not bus drivers coming. And so when you have this dynamic, okay, you have caring teachers. I guarantee every one of these institutions have at least 5 caring teachers or caring personnel that's willing to put the meals in their car and distribute them. But if you're trying to distribute this to 22 million people, 22 million kids, can you understand the logistics of this? So once again, when we talk about all of these, these basic parts of a food system that the melanated family can seize upon right now, am I saying that, Black farmers can supply all of these 22 million kids and all of these food shortages? That's not what I'm saying at all. But does this present an opportunity? Because when you think about the CARES Act, I know a lot of these cities are getting hundreds of billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars for problems such as this. One of the technologies with that is, so if you have to have been in the game for about 3 years, if we're specifically talking about food security, distributing food. And so maybe you as a producer, you've been in the game for 4 or 5 years, but you don't necessarily have a nonprofit. Okay, this is where you make a partnership because you need a fiscal agent to go for these grants. And let me put a thumbtack in that. We're not going to get grant funded out of this problem, but to specifically identify some of the resources available. And so what you have is you have a network of producers, farmers. These are rural farmers. We know that y'all said y'all missing out on hamburgers. Okay, who's the brothers that got livestock? Okay, we see that y'all are low on broccoli, vegetables. Who are the vegetable producers? Are we working with the urban farmers that can do your greens, your short harvest crops closer to the city? From that, okay, do I have a partnership with some distributors? Maybe you distribute newspapers. Maybe you work for a company and you distribute something else. Hey, boss, can I rent these vehicles? Pay for the insurance, or maybe this is something you can write off. But there are definitely some non-conventional conversations that people, in these different regions can have to be able to address this directly. Because it's not that the producers don't exist. They do exist. It's not that the nonprofits who are looking for ways to engage the community and help their community, they exist. It's not that there aren't urban gardeners, urban farmers, all spread throughout these regions that are looking for ways to reach more people. And so once again, here at B1AG, this is why we try to have this conversation. Obviously, we love to reach out and connect with people, but we're trying to talk about what are some things that can be applied in all of these regions. I'm pretty sure there's a lot. I know a couple of brothers up in Chicago right now that, I know with their organizations, they're trying to address this. But I mean, you're talking about, okay, maybe what I'm doing, little old me, maybe I can reach 20 kids. In Chicago, there's tens of thousands of kids alone. Then you go over to Cleveland. Then you go up to Detroit. Then you go down to Cincinnati. Then you go over to New York, Pennsylvania, Pittsburgh, the DMV. Then you go down south. These are, and what I know is there's 69 million students just on the east side of the Mississippi River alone, right? And so when you think about, if you want to really break it down to numbers, it's literally identifying the farms that have capacity to grow, whatever it is these schools are saying they're missing. From there, identifying who are the people that have independent independent shipping operations. I know a few brothers that they have their own trucks, they have their own semis. We see a lot of strikes going on down in places like Australia. Looking in the crystal ball, eventually that's going to come up here. As far as, a lot of mandates, gas prices rising for the truckers. And so once again, this is where, when we think about the concept of crowdfunding, it's getting past funding one individual or one organization versus, okay, bringing a conglomerate of proven people together to fund these broader projects. Like I said, personally, I feel like teaching 250,000 third through fifth graders would be invaluable for the longevity and perpetuity of what we call the melanated people in North America. Because what those third through fifth graders now represent, who right now they're in the midst of this. These are the ones that are missing out on the food. And so if they can see the elders, the older people in the community come together and put something together, man, them brothers, them sisters, they came to school with these bags, these food bags, call them cool names. That will leave an indelible seed in their mind. This is what opens up the space for the conversations to be had between the OGs and these young kids. Yeah, see what I just did? Yeah, you see me out in the hood, but what I did was, man, I connected the people to grow this, and I connected the people to drive this. I connected with the buildings over there that can store this. I connected with the chefs over there that can pre-prepare this. I worked with some of these nerdy cats that understand the science of how to package it, airtight, and I was able to ship it to you. Now, learn how to garden, learn the concept of producing, and, we create these pipelines. These become at-home curriculums. But saying that to say, we're going to have to think outside of the box to address this, because I guarantee you, we see how effective, governmental mitigation is when it comes to our hunger. This is something we're absolutely going to have to address ourselves if it's going to be resolved.
It's called building community resilience. This is what is needed. We're going to have to build our community resilience, which is a fancy way of just saying, look, we're going to have to work together, y'all. We're going to have to work together. Now, we in Farmer Brown, especially in Lexington, we've seen schools that are focusing more on agriculture. There are schools that are actually teaching their kids how to grow food at school. And this food that they're growing is helping to add to the food system in that school. These kids get to eat the food that they grow. This is going to have to become more of a thing. We're going to have to build our community resilience. We're going to have to get more people in the community growing their own food. Urban gardening, urban farming, vertical gardening, vertical farming is going to have to become more of a thing. It's a necessity at this point. And like I said, schools across the country are struggling to feed their kids. I don't know about y'all, but how many of y'all seen those Snicker commercials? And those Snicker commercials, when the people get hangry, when they get hungry and angry, they're angry because they're hungry. Could you imagine what 22 million hungry people look like? Do you think they're going to be asking for food? When you're really hungry, I'm not talking about, oh, I haven't eaten since this morning. No, I haven't eaten in a day or two, or a week, or 4 or 5 days. Do you think these people are going to ask for food? They're going to come take your food. They might make you out of a meal. This is very serious, folks. This is very serious. I have one more video I'd like to show y'all. This is not, we're not fear mongering. We just like, look, we got to get ready, y'all. And this is serious. And the kids, these are the kids. We've got to protect the kids.
Diet now find themselves facing a food shortage and scrambling to adapt.
KCTV5 is your school authority, and Betsy Webster is live for us now in the Northland to explain. Betsy, what is causing this?
Well, you remember how COVID caused supply chain challenges with grocery stores and restaurants? Well, now it's schools getting hit, not just here at the North Kansas City School District, but across the metro and even the nation. 5-year-old Miles Livingston gets a balanced diet at home and actually likes the healthy stuff.
What are your favorite foods to eat at school? Pineapple.
His mom is now concerned that won't happen in the cafeteria.
Making sure families have adequate food is huge, and especially if kids can't get that at home.
We are definitely in crisis mode, and it's just pure chaos. We're trying to find the food.
Jenna Knuth is North Kansas City Schools Director of Food and Nutrition Services.
Not being able to offer a fruit and vegetable is absolutely heartbreaking.
She says kids in North Kansas City schools are not going hungry, but menus will change on the fly. No carrots? Okay, corn. Or one day, maybe no veg at all, because they're struggling with distributors.
Cisco, another one of our big distributors, backed out the week before school started. They dropped us.
North Kansas City Schools sent an alert to parents today, but they're far from the only district in a pinch. Blue Valley told us they're managing with the occasional substitution. Hickman Mills said substitutions will be common. Liberty Schools had a more urgent message. They said they're especially struggling with juice and milk and encouraged parents to send kids to school with bottled water. Knuth recognizes distributors are short drivers to deliver, warehouse staff to stock the trucks, in addition to getting shorted by manufacturers, also in a staffing bind. She knows demand surged when schools brought kids back to the classroom full time, but she speculates there's a priority problem as well.
So the K-12 market has much lower margins. We do a much higher volume, but with much lower margins. Profit margins, yes.
Now she's trying to get government officials to come up with some sort of incentives for distributors to get them to prioritize school contracts. We did reach out to Cisco, and they sent us a statement that reads in part, Cisco regrets that we have had to delay or pause service for a limited number of customers in various locations. Now, they attributed that to unprecedented staffing shortage. They said they're aggressively recruiting and that they expect this all to be temporary, but they did not respond to any of the specifics I had approached them about with the K through 12 school contract concerns. Live in the Northland, Betsy Webster, KCTV5 News.
Right.
I hope y'all didn't let that word priority just go over your head. Profit margins, priority. Cisco, they're not in the business of social work. They are a for-profit company. So, look, those kindergarten schools, the schools, elementary schools, their profit margins are lower.
Even within that, the schools where it's typically a lot of melanated people are even lower.
Exactly.
You throw that word prioritization in there.
Melanated people, we've never been a priority when it comes to getting a fair share or equity in a lot of things, especially when it comes to food. A majority of these empty shelves that we see are in melanated zip codes, melanated area codes. we're going to be the last ones to eat. That's why we push and push and push every episode, every podcast, every video. We got to grow our own food. We've got to learn how to grow our own food. We need to teach 250,000 melanated young scientists, young men and women, young boys and girls, how to grow their own food. We need to get them to learn how to grow their own food at a very young age. These are going to be the kids that are going to be feeding us in the future. It's imperative that they learn this survival skill of growing their own food.
And it's imperative that the community teach it. Some things you can't leave to chance.
We've got to make this a priority in our community. Again, this is called, the fancy way to put it, building community resilience. We've got to work together. We need more community guards. We need more people just growing food in their backyard. We need people that have these trucks and these food trucks. It's time for us to mobilize in our own communities to make sure that our children, our babies, got some food to eat. They're going to be one of the first ones. They're one of the first ones that's being affected by this. Labor Day is what, Monday? Labor Day is Monday. 7.5 million people are going to lose their unemployment relief payments. That's 7.5 million people that have less money to try to feed their families. These schools across the country are struggling to feed their kids that pay for lunch. Now, this is these statistics are from 2017, 2018. Nearly 22 million low-income children participate in the National School Lunch Program. And that's 3 years ago, 4 years ago, before the pandemic. Again, what do you think 20, 30 million hungry people are going to look like? You've seen the Snickers commercial when people get hungry, they get angry. What do you think 30 million hungry people are going to look like?
Maybe I'm petty, man, but I just can't think. Like I said, we knew food insecurity was an issue. We've been talking to that since, we've known each other. But really to, put it in perspective, because, we throw this 22 million word around. These are real human beings. These are people who wake up in the morning. At least one person in the world loves them or they love somebody. These are people that got aspirations. And these aspirations, just like a plant, if you don't water it, if you don't feed it, guess what it does? First, it's going to compete with all the roots around it. And this is what you're talking about, that hangry, that pull up summer. And then when all the roots around you are dead, guess what happens to the plant? We have all of the potential. We have all of the resources as undermined as we are as a people. We have everything we need to change this dynamic. And it doesn't take anybody's legislative pen. It doesn't take anybody's altruism. It doesn't take anybody's grant. It takes us being like, you know what? No, I'm not going to take a chance of my food security, my kids or my grandkids or my nieces, my nephews' food security 5 years from now, 10 years from now. I'm not going to take a chance of it being in somebody else's hand that can't even feed their own. If I can't feed my own, Negro, do you think I'm going to sit and prioritize feeding yours? That's the first thing the most base animal in nature does, is teaches offspring how to produce food or procure food. I can't think of anything more important right now. Education is great. I'm all for education, but what? You can't eat a degree. You can't eat accolades. When we think about this distant learning, we keep bringing this up. The essence of how we educate ourselves is going to change. It is inevitably going to change, and it's going to incorporate kids being at home versus at school. Because, you know, I hate to prattle on. I didn't even mean to talk about it this long. Okay, these schools, because you heard them talk about priorities and profit. Anytime you mix some profit and people, profit is always going to get the is always going to get the benefit of the doubt. And so, okay, what can we do without? Because we still want to make profit. All right, if we have less people coming to this building, then we won't be as responsible for feeding as many, and we can cut that expense. Like I said, I think in Lexington alone, they had to cut like 10 bus routes for schools just starting this year. So I can only imagine what that dynamic looks like around the country. And so, you know, the people at the top who are cutting checks are thinking of, now, what can we get rid of? Oh, well, you know, let them black people deal with their own problems. Maybe not all of them, but I guarantee you some of the influencers, that's exactly how they feel. And I hate to say it in such a crass way, but it's fair. You can never expect someone else to care for ours more than we do. And, you know, there's only so much you can do talking about it. It comes a point of putting prints in the mud. It comes a point of, let me identify something I am good at within this concept of seed to table. It is very simple. I don't have to come and proselytize to you. I don't have to come convert you to anything. I don't think I have to do too much work to convince somebody, hey, if you're hungry, you need to eat. And so it's literally, you know, agriculture is a game of niches. What am I, a green thumb? Do I just know how to make things? Do I have mouthpiece? Am I real sociable and I'm just everywhere at all times? Okay, if I spend 5 hours of my day just going around the hood talking to everybody, I'm going to spend at least 1 hour out of this 5 promoting to somebody where to get food from. You know, I'm going to connect my shy weird buddy over here that grows stuff. I'm going to connect them in these hoods where they got this space. You got these D-boys that got a little expendable cash that's looking for something to invest. Get some high tunnels. Get something that's going to stick around. You know, you can make it rain and then it just dries up, right? Get something that's going to stick around, family, because it's going to have to come from us. It's going to have to come from us. A lot of these 501 entities, their bread comes from there being a problem, right? Like, hey, if these people that I said I'm serving actually fix their problem, then I'm not going to get no money no more. And I hate to say it because I done dealt in that for some years now, and I hate to say it, but that's just what it is, family. And so they're hitting a grant per se. You know, grants are cool, but that we're not going to get ourselves. We're not going to feed our kids with grants and charity. That may be a small piece of it, but this is going to have to come from an individual going home, analyzing your respective area, wherever you are in the diaspora, and looking at, now, what if this was my son? You know, I got a good job. I do pretty well for myself, but hey, I have gone to a grocery store where I could take $1 million, and if they don't have what it is I'm buying, my money has no value. But I do have my child's ear. I can't tell my child or point my child to people that's going to teach them how to do something to feed themselves. And maybe from that, they develop some sort of science. They develop some sort of skill, some sort of trade. When we talk about coding, maybe they're coming up with the new digital ways of distributing food and producing food. But these are very serious conversations. I don't feel like talking about it really does it justice, bro. I was, for the sake of a interesting conversation, I'm like, hey, this is interesting to talk about, but this is, I'm trying not to be negative, man. You see me smiling? I'm not too convincing. It ain't cool, man. And we can do something about it right now. We can do something about it right now. Every day that we don't is going to become that much harder, and we have that fewer amount of people that can actively do something about it. Every day we don't take action.
Action, movement. Let's do something. We're talking about it now because no one else is talking about it. Not a single national news report. We searched, but there are local news reports, but not a single national news report. They're glossing over that this country is in a pickle. And the quicker we realize it, build up our own community resilience, become more self-sufficient, work together. there was a meme. I seen this meme. It's like, you know, it's like if you don't, it basically says something like, you know, if you don't pay attention to the poor will have nothing left to eat except for the wealthy. It's getting that serious, y'all. Let's build our community resilience. All these churches. If you go to your church and say, "Hey, church, I don't care what religion you're in. Hey, church, we got this land over here. Let's go ahead and start growing some food at this church, and let's supply food for our own food bank for our own members of our church."
Let's take this Sunday school offering from one Sunday and pay one of these local farmers for some CSA shares, at least for the some of the elders and some of the families that have kids, just to test it out. And if it works, expand it to maybe, you know, two Sunday school offerings out of the month.
If you're at a private school, charter school, hey school, we see that our food security across the nation is being challenged. Let's start our own garden at school, and let's keep adding to it and adding technology to it to see how much food we can actually grow. We can even eat this food ourselves.
Let's do the milk crate challenge. Let's find whoever was the plug to find all of these milk crates for that challenge. Let's see which school can grow the most in the smallest space. And instead of y'all giving charity, hey, y'all just, you know, pay for the produce that's produced.
Motorcycle clubs. Hey, motorcycle club. Hey, fraternities and sororities. Hey, frat. Hey, sorors. Why don't y'all put some of this money into buying some land or buying some seeds or sponsoring some community gardens? Let's grow some food.
For the kids, if nothing else. If nothing else. You know, I ain't into, you know, supporting a grown person, right? I get it. But kids, they can't do, you know, what else are they going to do? They can't feed themselves.
The public will pay a price. All these decisions that our government is making, the inaction of us as community members, civilians, the public will pay a price. Let's grow some food. This is John Henry. We got Farmer Brown, the MC. If you really want to know something, what do the people need to do, Farmer Brown?
If you really want to know something, let's minimize the contention, maximize the ability to learn how to grow something.
Hunger is real, and you don't want to see it on a mass level.
Let these kids see what it looks like for a community to work together. That's the best way to teach. Seeing is believing.
Until next time, be blessed. Put some seeds in the ground. Be thankful for what we have now. Be thankful that we still have time to act. We still have time to put in this work. We still have time to make a difference. We still got time to make sure that we can eat. Let's get to work. Peace out.